all new countries, their people speak multiple languages and dialects because they are mixed populations brought together by the colonial power. So with Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines, India, Africa. To be a united nation, a nation which is united, the people must speak one common language so that they can speak to each other and the government can speak to them and everybody understands. Indonesia has hundreds of languages when it started in 1945, 49. 45 was their date of proclamation, 49 was when the Dutch withdrew. Since 1949, they have been teaching and using Bahasa Indonesia. Although Javanese is a superior language, higher status with literature, but Bahasa Indonesia was a language of the sailors of the Riau Islands, which we happen to be a part of. So they chose a language which our Malays speak and which is very easy to learn, and that has given us an advantage. So when a young student goes to an Indonesian school, in the primary years he learns his local language up till primary 6 and Bahasa. In secondary school and beyond, only Bahasa. So their local dialects will die out because they have to unify the country. If they had used Javanese, Indonesia would not have stayed together because it was too complicated for the other peoples. In Sri Lanka, where they had Sinhalese speaking Sinhala, Tamils who speak Tamil, Muslims who speak a version of Arabic. The independent government in 1956 legislated for political reasons. The Prime Minister wanted to win Sinhalese votes. He made Sinhalese the national language. And all schools, all government departments use Sinhalese. So suddenly he disenfranchised and marginalized about 15-20% of his population. That's why they have the Tamil Tigers. They are cornered. They were the people who were smart and learned English and rose to the top during the British rule. We made the right decision to use English as our common language. But we also retained the teaching of mother tongues. Even back in 1959, when we first became the government, my colleagues in the cabinet and I could foresee a time when China would become a huge economic power. The size of the country, the size of the people, the quality of the civilization, and the ability of the people. We are descendants of landless peasants. My great-grandfather came from Tapu because it was no future there. He made a small fortune, he went back. His wife did not want to go back with him, so that's why I'm here. My relatives in Tapu has given me my family tree. Ordinary people. 6 generations up, there was a military secretary in Guangxi. That's the only illustrious person. I think he was a Qinshi, but he didn't get into Beijing. Out of this background, we are able to do so many things. And China has 1,300 million people, poets, writers, scholars, artists, choreographers, dancers. You watch the Beijing Olympics opening. In 1 hour, Zhang Yimou with his team projected to the world 5,000 years of Chinese scholarship and achievements. presented in a succinct way, using mass dancers, mass Tai Chi performances and so on. I was there, sweating like mad in August. I was watching the reaction of the foreign leaders, and I knew that they knew this was a country that's going to rise. 30 years since they opened up. Deng Xiaoping opened up in 1978 after he came to Singapore and saw how we used capitalist companies to bring about progress in our society. He opened up special economic zones. Little Singapore acted as a catalyst because he visited us, saw it, and in 1992, in his southern tours in Nanxun, he said, study Singapore and do better than them. And they are. We greened the island, the Beijing Olympics, from the airport to the stadium to the city center, a mass of green. 40 million flower pots. You just consider. 40 million flower pots, all flowering at the same time. You know how difficult it is every Chinese New Year, our floral gardens, to get the flowers bloom up at the same time? Here, 40 million flower pots blooming at the same time. But so many farmers with green fingers. What do we have? We have flowering bushes, so you don't have to change them. So you get laborers from Bangladesh, India, whatever, and they trim it, and then the flowers come out when the season comes on. But they change flowers, lilies, gladiolas, roses. Putong Airport to Putong is greener than Singapore. They watched us. They sent teams to study us. They said, not so difficult. I got more manpower. I'll do it. Our choice of English has enabled us to make the fast growth. But with China's rise, parents and students no longer complain of the burden of learning Chinese. It's a difficult language to learn. It's without spelling, without phonetics. It's got characters, pictographs, ideographs. How do we overcome this? Is it easy? No. Can it be done? Yes. Many Singaporeans with only A0 standard of Mandarin, Hawaii, second language, with a P4, P5, P6, which means they just scrape through so they can get to university. They have gone to China, and in a total immersion as adults, but with that background, after 6 months to 1 year, they speak fluent Mandarin because they can ramp up. And I have innumerable emails to thank me. It says, thank you for forcing me to learn Mandarin. I'm now here. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to come here. So, what is it we can achieve? Equal standards in English and Mandarin? No. Every person, however good, has one master language. And I've watched Chinese interpreters in English. I've watched Indonesian interpreters in English, Indonesian. I know that their master language is their mother tongue. When you get a Chinese interpreter translating Chinese into English, sometimes she's not as exact. But when she translates English into Chinese, she's exact, because that's her master language. So I was talking to Lim Swee Se, who was sitting next to me as Lin Shaofen was speaking. I said, watch her. In her English, she followed the text. In her Chinese, she looked up. I will do the same. There's no alternative. What we have to do in our schools is to get rid of unnecessary burden of learning. The mistake we had was getting first language teachers from Chinese schools to go and teach Chinese as a second language in English schools. So they wanted to teach direct method, no use of English. But the student speaks English at home, doesn't understand what the teacher says, is turned off, becomes anti, and hates the language. We change the rules now. We use a new generation of teachers who are bilinguals, speak to them in Chinese, explain in English, they understand, they develop an interest. And we got a new generation growing up. With English still as their master language, but interested in Chinese, listen more to Chinese news program on TV or shows than in English. But read English newspapers because it's easier to read. So we've done surveys after surveys. That is the Singapore situation. Students meet, they talk to each other in the university canteens and poly canteens in Mandarin, but they read in English. So they will forget to read Chinese. So I've told MediaCorp, please put subtitles in Chinese. So whether they like it or not, they'll be reminded, these are the words, these are the characters. Because one day, you have to go to China, or the Chinese will come here to do business, and you must understand their letters.